India's merchandise exports declined 3.5% in September to $32.62 billion, the lowest in 10 months, compared with $33.81 billion in the same month last year. This is the first year-on-year contraction in goods exports in 19 months. India's outbound shipments had hit a monthly record in March 2022 at $42.2 billion. Meanwhile, imports fell below $60 billion for the first time in 7 months at $59.35 billion, but were 5.44% higher than a year ago. The trade deficit, which stood at $26.73 billion for September, was almost 19% higher than a year ago. The Commerce Ministry explained that exports in certain sectors had seen a decline due to the slowdown in some developed economies and the resultant slowdown in demand. It added that exports had also been impacted by some of the measures taken to tackle domestic inflation and food security concerns. Compared to last year, engineering goods, drugs and pharmaceuticals, chemicals, ready-made garments, rice, and cotton yarn and handlooms saw contraction in September. Together, these are 6 of the country's top 10 export products. Exports of cotton yarn and handloom products recorded the sharpest decline, shrinking 41.4% year-on-year to just $767.5 million in September from $1.31 billion. On a worrying note, engineering goods exports, which have been the driver of India's exports performance of late, declined 17% year-on-year to $7.81 billion from $9.41 billion. But electronics goods exports came out as a bright spot, jumping 64% to $1.9 billion. On the other hand, India's services exports have shown resilience. They grew 24.3% to $25.42 billion in August, according to provisional data. In July, services exports increased by 20.2% year-on-year to $23.26 billion. In December last year, analysts at CRISIL said in their report that the Indian government's goal of achieving $1 trillion in goods exports by fiscal 2028 needed a reality check. One of the factors they listed for being cautious was the fact that the country's exports were highly sensitive to global growth shocks. Even before the onset of the Russia-Ukraine war, they had warned that the emerging global environment was set to become more challenging. In September this year, the Export-Import Bank of India also said that exports could be shadowed by softening global commodity prices, a possible slowdown affecting major trade partners, and the inflationary pressures and tight monetary policies around the world. And the world is bracing for much more challenging days ahead. Economist Nouriel Roubini has said that a global recession will set in by the end of the current calendar year and last through 2023. Roubini, who correctly predicted the 2008 financial crisis, has said that the US, along with the rest of the world, is about to face an ugly and long recession. World Trade Organization Director General Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala has also said that the world is edging into a global recession. The WTO is expected to lower its 2022 trade growth projections next month. In April, it had lowered its projection for growth in merchandise trade this year to 3% from 4.7% previously. Since external trade accounts for half of India's GDP, it could face an economic downturn if a global recession does hit. The country will have to brace for lower merchandise and services exports. But commodity prices are also correcting. Going forward, they are expected to come down significantly. This would cut the import bill and boost consumption, which would push the growth momentum. So, how are Indian exports likely to perform going ahead?
There are very significant, possibilities that economic slowdown is going to hit us before the end of this year. So, in the next couple of months, we are going to see the clear signs of slowdown. And as that happens, we are going to get into the vicious cycle. Now, we were in a virtuous cycle. We have been in a virtuous cycle since early 21, when most of these developed countries have been following expansionary policies, with the huge pump priming and all these fiscal incentives that showed up domestic demand. Now, we are at the end of that cycle. These economies are doing exactly the opposite, and they're going into a tailspin. So we are into going to face real headwinds, and in the next couple of months, I expect that exports are going to be declining even faster than what we have seen.
What about free trade agreements? India has returned to the FTA negotiating table after a long hiatus. While agreements have been signed with Australia and the UAE, negotiations are at various stages of conclusion with Canada, the UK, and the EU.
The United Kingdom is shrinking pretty fast, and when an economy and a major economy shrinks, they are in no position to be generous in terms of granting market access. Of course, we'll get some in terms of some merchandise goods. Some expansion is going, some market access will be granted, but whether those additional market access will get translated into higher exports in the short run, that is doubtful. European Union is also facing huge uncertainties. I expect under these circumstances, EU to take a very, very tough stand in terms of granting market access. So overall, the FTA scene is really ambivalent. Prospects aren't really too good.
The government has no arrows left in its quiver when it comes to shoring up exports in the event of a global recession. This makes managing India's increasingly vulnerable external sector situation all the more urgent.
If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.